Now you look at the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens finished this past season with a 8-9 record, and injuries hit Baltimore really tough. Like, before the season even started, like, they lost pretty much all of their running backs. You lost J.K. Dobbins, you lost Gus Edwards, you lost Justice Hill. You had to bring in players off the street to fill your hole at running back. Then Lamar Jackson got dinged up near the middle of the season, so that kind of halted your playoff run. And despite that, you know, Baltimore was still in the playoff race until the very end. So you have to give a lot of props to John Harbaugh for the way this team played despite all the injuries they had. And that was just on the offensive side of football. Defensively, you lost your 2 starting cornerbacks, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters. Like, there's just so many injuries on this Baltimore Ravens team. And going into this year, the Baltimore Ravens had Super Bowl expectations. There were people who had the Ravens in that Super Bowl discussion, in that Super Bowl window. And when they get back healthy, this is still going to be a team that's going to be in that Super Bowl conversation, because when the Ravens are fully healthy, they are one of the most talented teams in the league. And going in, you're going to have the opportunity to have a pretty high draft pick, to improve the defense furthermore by getting a impact player. Rather, you want to continue to improve the defensive line, find another edge rusher, get you an interior defensive lineman, or maybe you go on the offensive end and you end up improving the offensive line, which is something that needs some work, which was a big question mark that many people had about the Ravens going into this year. So for the Ravens, you know, you're going to have a little bit of money to mess with in free agency. It remains to be seen, you know, if they're going to end up coming to a extension with Lamar Jackson this offseason, or if those talks are going to furthermore be postponed. Then you look at the young wide receivers that they have. You have Rashad Bateman, which when he was on the field, he showed flashes, but you're still looking for some more players to emerge. You got Marquise Brown, who was having a pretty solid season. This was probably the best season that Marquise Brown has had so far as a pro. So for Baltimore, you look at the state of the AFC North. Cleveland, we don't really know what's going on with them. Yes, we know that the Browns are a really talented team, but we don't know if Baker Mayfield is the guy. You also have to wonder just how consistent are the Browns going to be. Are the Browns always going to be a team that's going to be on top of the AFC conference, or are they going to be a team that's going to be inconsistent, similar to what the Minnesota Vikings have been under former head coach Mike Zimmer? Make the playoffs one year and then miss the next year. Then you have Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh doesn't know who their quarterback is going to be next year. So the Browns are pretty much a team that has a lot of stability in the AFC North. Not really a lot of question marks per se. It's really just, can they stay healthy? Then you look at Cincinnati. Yes, Cincinnati has had a really successful season. They have been one of the biggest surprises in the league. But at the same time, you have to wonder, are they going to be able to sustain the success that they had this past year? Is this something that's going to be sustainable, or is this just a one-off occurrence because the Cincinnati Bengals were able to take advantage of the Browns and the Ravens being down, and also Pittsburgh? But for Baltimore, another question has to come to Lamar Jackson. There have been some people who have suggested that the Ravens should trade Lamar Jackson, and I should call you crazy for those comments, because why would you change somebody that's that dynamic like a Lamar Jackson? And I understand where some people are coming from, because the narrative that Lamar Jackson cannot win the big games in the playoffs is definitely going to be something that a lot of people are going to continue to harp on, and understandably so, because we look at Lamar Jackson as a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the league. And when you're considered a top 5, top 10 quarterback, you're supposed to be somebody who elevates your team, and you're supposed to be somebody who elevates your team in big moments. And oftentimes when the Ravens end up being in these playoff games, they end up coming short, and Lamar Jackson doesn't really have great performances. On top of that, it remains to be seen what's going to happen with Greg Roman. Is he going to remain the offensive coordinator in Baltimore, or is John Harbaugh going to end up firing him because he just recently fired his defensive coordinator? So they're going to be going in a different direction that way on defense. So what's going to happen with the offense? On top of that, how are you going to improve the passing game? Because yes, you do need to have a good rushing attack to win a Super Bowl, but you also have to be able to throw the football, because we hear this quote all the time: it's a passing league. And if the Ravens are going to be able to win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson, they're going to have to improve the passing game. Now, you do have the wide receivers. Hopefully, your young wide receivers should develop. Somebody should come on next year. It's going to be up to Lamar Jackson to make sure that he's able to get the ball to those guys and that he's able to get the ball to tight end Mark Andrews. So, is John Harbaugh going to keep Greg Roman, or is he going to find somebody who's able to make sure that the Ravens can have more success in the passing game? Because the Ravens offense is not bad under Greg Roman. Even though Greg Roman gets a lot of scrutiny and gets a lot of criticism, like, his offenses are still really good. Like, his specialty is in the ground game. It's in the run game. Now, he's not really somebody who specializes in the passing game. So if the Ravens are looking for the passing game to improve, they probably should look to go in a different direction, because Greg Roman, you pretty much know what he is at that point. He's somebody who specializes in the run game, doesn't really put a lot of emphasis on the passing game. So I think if you are a Ravens fan, it really just comes down to what John Harbaugh likes. Does John Harbaugh like the philosophy on offense, or is he also somebody who wants to see more out of the passing attack? But the state of the Ravens franchise is still in a pretty good state. As a matter of fact, I think it's in a even better state now than what it was previously, because even though you missed the playoffs, you had an 8-9 campaign. When you're a healthy team, you're pretty much a lock for the playoffs. You know that you are a premier Super Bowl contender. You're one of the best teams in the AFC when you are fully healthy. So now you're going to have another off season to continue to stack talent. You're going to continue to be able to draft some really good impact players. So for the Ravens, when this team gets back to full strength next season, this is a team that definitely is going to be in that Super Bowl conversation. And it just remains to be seen if Lamar Jackson can finally get over the hump in the playoffs and lead the Ravens to the Super Bowl during the 2022 NFL season. But you look at this Baltimore Ravens franchise going into the offseason right now is in a very good spot. It's just all about getting back healthy and improving and adding more depth to your team.